Welcome to the Core Women Podcast, the place for women entrepreneurs, authors, and self-starters looking to build community and gain valuable insights through expert interviews with women at the top of their game. Join your host, podcaster, producer, expert coach, entrepreneur, and author, Dr. Summer Watson, as she aims to inspire and empower you through these candid conversations. Lean in and embrace the journey. It's time to start the show. Here's your host, Dr. Summer Watson.
Today on the Core Women Podcast, we have the versatile and resilient Leslie Flowers, an inspiring leader and educator. Leslie's journey spans corporate publishing, entrepreneurship, board service, and women's empowerment with a focus on human performance. She excels in speaking, mastermind facilitation, broadcasting, writing, and instructional design. Leslie integrates Dr. Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and her own The 12 Laws of Achievement to unlock leadership potential and drive extraordinary results. She is also the author of multiple books, including her latest fiction, The Possibility of Eroda. Wow, we have a lot to chat about today. Welcome to the show, Leslie.
Thank you so much, Summer. I'm very excited to be here. And it's really interesting to hear you read the biography and all the things, right, that are included. So I'm a little bit overwhelmed. And so thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. Well, you've done a lot. We have a lot to talk about. So let's jump right into this. But before we get started in talking about all the incredible professional things you've done along your journey, let's dive into this question. If you could describe your journey in one word to this point, what would that word be and why?
Ooh, that's a good question, Summer. I would say the one word would be, well, it would really be between two. It would be between courage and curiosity. That could be it. Right? It could be imagination. It could be persistence. So it's really a tough question. I would say that it is the love of learning. It's the desire, this inner desire to know more. And then the more that I know, the more I'm able to observe what's going on. I become more aware, and I can better help my clients by sharing the new things I know with them so they can do the same thing.
Right.
That's what's kept me young, is this continual learning, because learning is our conscious awareness is our gift. We're the only living beings that can take an idea, which is thought energy, and turn it into physical form. And so if we don't do that, if we don't learn how, what the process is to take an idea and bring it into fruition, we may be the only one who can do that for certain people, then we're squandering conscious awareness and the ability to take ideas and bring them into physical form.
So taking those conscious ideas and bringing them into physical form. I love that.
Yes.
And that speaks to so much that you have done. You've touched on inner desire to continue to learn.
Yeah.
You've touched on that consciousness and how you bring that into reality. You've worn many hats throughout your career, from corporate publishing to entrepreneurship. How have these experiences shaped your perspective on leadership and success?
Well, it's been fantastic, because being in corporate for 45 years really gave me the opportunity to watch leaders, see what's missing, learn from mistakes. And then those things also apply into small business, entrepreneurship. Those same leadership qualities is what I'm looking for. And that's what's missing often in businesses, that there's a minimum of leadership expertise at the top level. And part of that is the emotional intelligence or the emotional awareness, that they're more heart-centered than ego-centered. It's not easy to figure out when you're interviewing for a job, or you're building a business, or you're doing business with a small business, There has to be a way for you to determine, is this an objective leader that lives in values, is fair to others, and is not all wrapped up in, I am the CEO of a company, look at me. It's more like, I want you to take my place as CEO so I can retire. So it's one's heart-centered and one's still ego-centered and materialistic. And one day they won't be, but in the present, if you can figure out if these leaders or the people that you're going to work for, they have character, they have integrity, they're more focused on doing right things instead of doing things right. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense, because what you're saying about being heart-centered versus egocentric or ego-centered,
Mm-hmm.
it takes consciousness, it takes understanding, it takes these reflection points along our lives to really understand what we are in alignment with, how we are moving through the world. And if you aren't tapping into that consciousness, you're going to be departing from that present, that
Yeah.
moment, those values.
You're squandering the real gift that humans have, which is to stop ourselves from being reactive, and takes a little something, but to be observant, to realize that my way isn't the right way. Everybody's way is the right way. And what's more, our perspective, I've discovered, Summer, is always growing and changing. So it occurred to me, then why do people argue that their way is the right way or the best way when it's not static, when
Yes.
it's continually growing and changing? So it changes the conversation when it's not about doing it right, but it's about doing right things. So the heart-centered part is focused on service to others. And in that case, you would want to listen to all points of view and select the best solution for where you're headed in service. But if you're on the other side and you're still ego-centered, you're going to stand for being right, and it's going to be done this way, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says. So that's the distinction. The heart-centered or the service-oriented person is willing to step back and say, okay, there are other ways. What can I learn from these other people, rather than forcing my way down their throat, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it really resonates with me and aligns with what you're saying regarding what you said earlier. Your inner desire is to know more.
Exactly.
And I wish everyone had that same desire to know more, to learn more.
That's all we have, really, if you think about it. What we think. And the more information we get, the less confusion, the less missing information, the more spring in our step. We begin to find out, well, maybe it isn't as hard as it used to be. Why? Because I learned new things. I learned from other people who had done and overcome those obstacles themselves. And being open to hearing how they did that, that's where that curiosity comes in. It's like, oh, I can do that. I hadn't
Yes.
thought of that. So that's the way that we all grow in awareness of our potential. And the more we know, the easier it is for us to live a life every day of wealth, health, and happiness, not as a goal, but why can't we live our lives every day in a state of mind, which is, I am wealthy, I am happy, and I am healthy? Why can't we do that? We can.
We absolutely can.
Yes,
So I'm going to jump to my next question.
sure.
In your opinion, what are the most critical skills emerging leaders need to develop in today's rapidly changing professional landscape?
So what they have to know is it has to start at the top.
Okay.
Okay, I just spent 2.5 years in an emerging enterprise. I received a call from the president and said, Leslie, we've got some stinking thinking here. And they're building this business, but people are very egocentric. You got a lot of engineers, a lot of men, and this business of letting go of being right and actually listening to what other people say is not a common skill. We're pretty well seeped into our way of doing things and governed by our fears, which have been around forever, and our beliefs. So in this 2.5 years where I ran about 10 different 12-week programs, I started with two 12-week programs with the CEOs.
Okay.
So before I even went into the company, I put the CEOs through the program. And that made it really easy because then we opened up to the C levels and the directors. And so this new way of thinking, which is objective, considerate, kind, there's a lot of emotional intelligence and managing yourself, rippled down beautifully. Whereas I wonder if someone within an organization or even a few people within an organization took on this kind of professional and personal development and awareness training and understanding our mind, et cetera, and how we think, how it would pervade within the company. It wouldn't. And then likely what would happen is these people who actually went out on their own within the company and learned, they're going to leave to find two leaders or leaders who think the way they do. This is really agile thinking. This is kind of what Stephen Covey refers to finding a better solution, not necessarily a compromise, but understanding there's a lot of ways to solve a problem, and everybody has solved problems. So I would say, Summer, that the way to integrate the growth of emotional awareness, professional growth, personal growth, emotional intelligence, the smart CEOs will take this on for themselves. And that's what you want to look for when you're looking to do business with someone or you're looking to go to work for a company, to ask the questions to see what kind of a person they are. Are they people first and money second? Or are they money first and people second? Are they serving people first and money is the byproduct? Now, most of us are going to say, well, we're people first. Of course I am. Of course I'm people first. Until a bill comes in or until the bank account is a little low and all of a sudden you flip over to, oh, now I'm money first. That doesn't work that way. You're one or the other. And if you live true in service, money comes to you from unexpected sources. That's the magic of life. Yes, you're going to earn money on your job. Yes, you're going to make deals, but the real money, big money, and real success will come as a surprise.
I love how you combine the question regarding critical leadership, emerging leaders, with those laws of achievement and also what you're putting out into the world.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about a book that you have written.
Okay.
Tell us about that.
Well, that's the number 10 book, but it's my first fiction.
And what is it called?
It's called The Possibility of Eroda. And it launched in July in science fiction and philosophy. Aren't those interesting categories?
Science fiction and philosophy. Wow, that's a combination. Tell us more.
Okay. So this book, actually, the outline was written 25 years ago. And I had decided on a wild hair that I was going to open a chocolate company in the mountains of North Carolina. I knew nothing about chocolate. I never run a business, so I was clueless. And that's the first law of achievement. You don't know how. So you must be so compelled to do it that all your natural fears take a back seat. So it has to be really compelling and really important and really a love. Now, when that happened, my 33-year marriage had dissolved and I didn't want it to. So I was in a very low place and I had a big hole in my heart. And I know your listeners have been there. When we don't want a relationship to end and we put a lot into it, but both people have to want to, right? Yeah. So there I was with a hole in my heart. And a friend said, well, come up to the mountains and I want you to meet a chocolatier. And that's where I got the idea. So I was working full time, 4 hours away. And every Friday I'd hop in my car and drive 4 hours straight on Interstate 40 to the mountains and run the chocolate business. The chocolatier lived in the chalet downstairs that I had rented, and the manufacturing was up top. And they were handmade truffles with the best chocolate and the best flower essences, and all the truffles were handmade. I mean, it really should have taken everybody by storm, but it didn't, because people know what kind of candies they like. So even though I had an ad in the New Yorker, it doesn't change people's buying habits. So ultimately, a year and a half later, I closed the business and I call it my $75,000 MBA. But what happened was, on the drive up, it's so boring. This drive is a drag, right? So all of a sudden, I started visualizing. Now, what you need to know is, to fill that hole in my heart, I fell in love, and I made it very important because it had to fill the hole, right? So I met someone who I fell madly in love with. And over a period of a couple of years, I spent time with him, and very smart aeronautical engineer. I mean, it wasn't going to be somebody who wasn't smart. But I manufactured that love using visualization and creative imagination, which has been my work for 25 years. I filled that hole with just luxuriating in the warm, loving feelings I felt to cover up the pain. So after a few months, when I got to the office, I wrote out the outline. It was 12 pages, single space, and each trip was something different. It was total fantasy. I had no experience. I didn't bring any synthetic imagination, that being the distinction from creative. The synthetic is stuff you've already done, right? So you can bring it in. But this was all creative, which is like in your mind's eye. It's a connection to the universe. And the imagination and visualization really is the DNA to manifestation. Anyway, so I made it happen, but I couldn't write the book. I was not ready. The book was so big. It's a science fiction, and it takes place on Earth, and a new planet is formed, to astral traveling, all sorts of amazing things. But I couldn't write it till about 2 years ago. So what I did when I was ready, 25 years after I wrote the outline, I had healed, right? I'll always love this man because he helped me fill that dark place, right? And I'm still in touch with him today. And he is the model of the love story in that. And so am I. But the thing is that now, over 25 years of doing all the things you mentioned initially, I was ready. I was capable, because what I know from the 12 laws of achievement in my work for the last 25 years is that the size of the achievement you're going for must be matched with an equal investment of time and learning. So you could do a 12-week goal pretty easily, get a new client, create a new web page, whatever it is, you can do that. But this was big. And I wasn't ready. And the universe is our partner. Now, you can call the universe God, Buddha, Krishna, it doesn't matter. For me, it's one energetic, omnipresent force of love that wants us to succeed. So one of the things to know is the exact day you'll manifest is really dependent on whether you've done the work. That's why I knew 25 years ago, even though I had the details, thank God I wrote them down, because I had the topography, the climate, how the planet was inhabited, how people procreate, how they learn, all sorts of things. It took all these years of study, learning, writing books, interacting, healing, to all of a sudden I was ready. And I banged it out in 12 weeks, one episode a week. But remember, I had the outline, which was highly detailed, but I was ready.
Right.
The truth is, with that book, it's just so big.
Yeah.
It's such a big story. The universe basically said, Leslie, good thing you took the notes, but I want you to succeed. And I couldn't succeed writing it then. I knew that. And so did the universe. So that's the story of that one.
Wow, that's exciting. I love that evolution. It entails so much, from conception to where it is today, and you being able to write it, but having these life experiences, this intuition, this clarity, these steps, this evolution led you to this book.
That's right.
And that's why it's so important to write ideas down.
And keep them.
and keep them because you knew you were going to go back to it, but you also knew in your heart that you weren't ready for it when you wrote that outline.
And I didn't know when I would go back.
Right.
I really didn't know, but it just so happened that someone who runs a publishing platform, I had joined the group, and I said, hey, I wonder, would you be willing to publish each of these episodes? He said, sure. So that's what I did. That was my 12-week goal. Every week I banged out a different episode, and voila, the book was done.
Nice. And
Yeah.
that is a great process as well, because I think a lot of people have ideas and then they let them go. I was just talking to another author and she's like, just do 1 minute a day or 3 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day, because here's the thing. We're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. We're going to get to it.
Right.
And we may not. And yet I loved your journey because you did write it down. It was a significant reflection point in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't know how that was going to evolve, but because you wrote it down and it was meaningful to you and it had so much depth to it, you did come back to it.
Yes. And here's the other thing that I'll share with you, that everything is actually created twice in the universe. Now, you don't have to understand exactly how. No one really has to understand. But effectively, what happens when you get that idea and you visualize it in your mind's eye, the way you already got it, the new car, the orphanage, whatever it is right? In that moment, the second iteration is born in the ether. Now, what you do between the time you begin and you actually achieve, you, through repetition, visualize already having it again and again and again. Why again and again and again? Because with the visualization, you become motivated. Your cellular vibration rises to love, generosity, gratitude. You're in a happy place. When you bring it up again, that vibration comes back up with it. Now, that amplitude of vibration is the speed at which the thing you want is coming to you. And remember that you don't go to it. It actually is deposited in your lap, but it's based on the universe will engineer to send it to you. You're actually attracting the second iteration based on how frequently you visualize and that you drive your cellular vibration up, because mind actually is something that happens. It's an activity in your cells. It's not an organ. You know this when you feel really good. You got goosebumps on your arm, right? Or you're with your honey, right? That shows you that what you're thinking about has a direct impact on your body. And so you always want to be as much as you can in this higher vibration. So that's why if you visualize every day for a few minutes, as your other author said, or every few days, when you resurrect the memory, the vibration comes with it. And then, so what you're doing is you're charging up your cellular vibration, which is sending a message to the universe. Hey, look, I'm doing this again. And it drives the manifestation to you. So in my case, while I ceased for many years, those are spiritual seeds. And I had already put in enough for them to grow some roots. So they don't disappear when you work on them. They're, let's say, in hibernation while you're bringing other ideas to fruition. And the universe is collaborating with you based on the vibration. So that's why, being happy as much as you can is a good thing, obviously. So really, mine was in hibernation while I was doing the work, but I was doing other things all the time.
Oh, sure.
The trick with the process is one goal at a time, unless it was something like this that required a longer period of time. Make sense?
Oh, yeah. It had to simmer. It had to be within your soul, your spirit. It's there. It's taking root. It's rooting deeper.
That's right.
And here's how it manifested.
That's exactly right.
We have covered so much ground here, Leslie. We have went over so many different things.
I know,
from the laws of achievement, not all of them, but some of them, your conscious to your subconscious, what goals are and how they manifest in your life.
Yeah.
A great deal of your journey, your history, all the things that you've done, so many things that you've done. It's been an exciting conversation. We could touch on one thing and talk for days. And yet we touched on many things. I'm going to close out by asking you this last question.
Sure.
If you could leave the listeners with one tip to support their cellular vibration, what would that be?
I think it would be to be open to the idea that we can consciously control what we think and outweigh our negative beliefs and negative faith in our ability not to do it, because we failed so many times. When we get a new idea, well, we say to ourselves, or automatically, not really thinking, our belief saying, well, yeah, Leslie, you've done that before and you failed miserably. Why would you want to do it again? The thing is that the work that I've done actually follows, and the 12 laws of achievement is the checklist that is nowhere to be found. No one ever had a checklist. The closest thing to consistent goal achievement is in Think and Grow Rich. So you have people haphazardly and sporadically achieving, but that puts you in a roller coaster. Oh, I'm really excited this month. I feel like crap the next month. I didn't reach my goal. I'm really feeling good this month. I reached my goal. I'm feeling lousy. That's not wealth, health, and happiness every day. What if there was a checklist that actually had you consistently achieve so you could grow your business, so you could feel good all the time? All that's missing, Summer, are those 12 laws. And they mimic the exact process that gave you the negative beliefs. That's what I figured out. And we know a lot of it. Through trial and error, we know a lot, but the few things we don't know are counterintuitive. You would go, oh, that's not possible. So here's one, for example. You only set one goal at a time. Well, that's ridiculous. I have so many goals. But in order to learn the process of taking an idea that you have no idea how to do, that you're compelled to do, you are the one. You're so driven that all the fears that naturally come up, they take a back seat. So it's critical that whatever it is you want to do, you cannot know how to do it or pick another goal. And you have to be so driven that none of the 6 basic fears bother you. And that is how you actually begin setting a goal. Then you'll go through the process of building faith. I teach people how to learn to look at the signs, those signs that we call coincidences, right? When people show up and opportunities, oh, guess what? I was really looking for this and it showed up. It's not a coincidence, because what we want is moving toward us in the same vibration as we're moving toward it. So what would I say? Be open to the ability to develop stopping automatic thinking, reactive, angry, self-centered thinking. And it starts with one thought at a time. And it takes time, but it's fun.
Well, I love that tip. And I want to thank you, Leslie, for joining me on the Core Women podcast today.
I'm honored. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You can follow Leslie Flowers on LinkedIn and on Instagram at Leslie Thomas Flowers, and check out her website at leslie-flowers.com.
Thank you for joining us on the Core Women podcast with Dr. Summer Watson. We're so glad you're here and would love to connect more with you. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Core Women, and on Twitter at Core Women 1. For more about Core Women and Dr. Watson, visit corewomen.com. Want more support and resources for amazing women like you? Great! Join Dr. Watson and Jen Fontanilla at the Life, Love, and Money Collective, a Core Women production that aids in understanding the key traits that might be getting in the way of living a life that you are absolutely passionate about. Connect with Summer and Jen and find out more at thelifeloveandmoney.com.